How many clicks 2 years ago, 5 years ago?
Oh, we didn't even look at it. Like you were talking about setting up Cassandra, taking a month. Yeah, that's like building a nuclear reactor. We ain't got no time for that. We just kept kicking that can down the road. We'll get to it. But make no mistake, you know, your developers want to try things. They also want to go to the cloud. So it's not so much about deciding if this app can go. It's deciding if you want to keep those developers around, because they're going to deploy apps to the cloud, whether it's at your company or somewhere else.
Hey everyone, Alex Williams here of the New Stack, here for the DataStax Accelerate Conference, and I'm here with a group of experts, and what we're going to be talking about is cloud data and that data fire hose that we all know so well. Things have changed a lot with the cloud in recent years, and now with COVID-19, we're seeing a whole new world out there. So joining me for this conversation today are here to talk about Cassandra and the role that it plays. And joining us for our discussion is Ed Enough, Chief Product Officer at DataStax. Hey, Ed.
Hey, Alex. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Amr Awadallah of Google Cloud Platform. Hey, Amr. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to be here.
Tony Baer of DB Insights.
Hey, Alex. Good to see you.
And Robert Rees of Datacle. Hey, Robert.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I want to start off because we're having this discussion clearly in our homes. It's a time of every day being a Cyber Monday, as someone said to us recently. And I'm curious, how have these last 2 months, going on 3, really affected, the community that is working on Cassandra? And I want to know how it's changed the picture of enterprises for how, they view Cassandra and how they're viewing data ingestion and data analytics overall, because it's really becoming quite a bear, as I understand, just as everyone has moved online. And Ed, I'd love to just start with you.
Sure. I think what we've seen has been that for a long time, companies really ramped up what they were doing online, and this whole term digital transformation, everything people have been talking about for some time now. But, we've been at this point where people had sort of their traditional, their legacy systems, their existing businesses and where they did business. And then they were shifting online, and, depending on where they were, if they said, hey, I'm about half online, half in my stores or my offices, I'm doing pretty well. And that's what people were talking about in terms of new IT and old IT. And then now in the space of 90 days, everything you're doing, all of your people, all of your customers, all of your business, all of your transactions, everything is now fully online. And so, the good news is people have been thinking about it. They've been building towards this, but they thought they had 3, 4, 5 years to do it. And now they have to do it all, in the space of 2 months.
Yeah.
No problem, right? Right, Amr? No problem whatsoever, right? I mean, it's just simple.
Very simple, yes. You just do like that, Thanos, and everything is done. Of course not. I mean, it is for organizations that have been on the journey for some time. Yes, it is. But for those that are just starting the journey right now, it's hard.
How is it hard? I mean, you've been working in this world for years, so you know how hard it is. And how does that change expectations now with skills? Just how you're viewing people? Yeah, skills.
Yeah, it's all about skills, right? So the people that they have trained internally on how to work with the newer software as a service and cloud technologies, they have not been exposed to that. They have been used to doing things the old way, and these people all have to be trained very fast now to be able to embrace this new way of doing things.
And those are skills across the board, aren't they, Amr? I mean, any skills in particular that are relevant to our discussion?
It's really across the board. Now, going forward, as you migrate stuff, operational skills, the requirements on it goes down, which is a good thing, right? So because most of the software as a service and the cloud implementations automate a lot of that. So that truly helps. But still, as you do the migration, of all of your legacy apps into a cloud environment, a lot of work needs to be done both on the development side, but also on the operational side.
Those legacy apps, Tony. I mean, you've been in this world for a long time, and you've seen it all. You've seen. I mean, I don't want to, get too deep into the legacy architectures that exist today that may be, I don't want to even say how old, but how do you,
Thanks for asking.
I mean, really, how are teams adapting? I mean, what do you tell people, and I mean, what are they asking you?
Well, I think a lot of it, I was just thinking back as you were talking, asking with Robert, just that the biggest pain is really in the move, and that once you get there, of course, then you get into the plateau. What I'm thinking of is that there have been a number of transitions that I've seen over the years. You can have to see the tire tracks on my forehead. Basically, though, what I'm thinking here is looking at the whole cloud transition. I was doing some research, with a number of my clients last year, and I came very much to the conclusion of that we're kind of entering the era of what I call the hybrid default. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is that in the past, the default decision for where to deploy systems, and I'm not talking about like newborn in the cloud systems, but like more traditional enterprise systems, was you'll deploy on premises, and well, should we consider the cloud? And now, before all this was happening, I was starting to see a shift amongst my clients and the clients that they dealt with, that decision-making process is reversing to the point where basically enterprises want the simplicity, the operational simplicity and agility of the cloud-controlled plane. And so that sort of change of mindset was already happening. But on the other hand, in terms of the transition, talking about the skills, it's really a matter of that in most large organizations, there already have been departments, groups that have been using the cloud. Mm-hmm. I mean, it started with the dev teams using basically let's get some cluster, let's rent up some compute on EC2 and let's do some dev tests or something like that. Why wait to have to buy that? And eventually the use cases basically progressed to the point where we started to look at opportunistic app opportunities such as like a new mobile app that you want to deploy out to customers. Well, that's naturally born in the cloud. So the thing, what I'm getting at is that in most established enterprises, you have groups that already have been using the cloud, and these more mainstream groups, the mainstream of the organization, needs to learn from them, just like they learned from them when PCs first came in through the back door. Same thing.
Same thing.
Same but different.
Same thing. But Robert, do you have any tire tracks on you? Have you gone through this before?
One or two. Look, it is. Tony's absolutely right. William Gibson, didn't he have a line about this? The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. There are teams in your enterprise that know what they're doing. Step one, have them backfill, train their backfill, and then spread them out like Johnny Appleseed across other departments to train them. The folks that get trained, train other people. All right. This is how you do it. And you assign tickets to them. You assign tasks to them. They have a Robin to their Batman and they knock it out. This is not hard, but what it requires is a commitment from the organization to get better. And they need to not say, that's not my problem, because, yeah, it is. It is definitely your problem.
Yeah, that's not my problem doesn't really fly these days, does it?
Yeah. They're all finding out that now. Yes, exactly.
But going back to then this discussion on hybrid cloud, and today DataStax announced Astra GA and a console integration with Google Cloud Platform. So what does this mean for Cassandra developers, and the users out there? And, what does it mean for the skills gap? What does it mean for, people who are, just trying to just keep, keep going and, and not losing everything that they have really. Cause I mean, that's the state of the world right now. Businesses are pretty close. A lot of businesses are really close to losing everything that they have.
Yeah. So, the way I look at it is these things, there definitely is a skills gap, but the technology has to get a lot easier, and it has to get easier in the right ways. I'm not saying that there's going to be a magic easy button, but it should not require you to be, an expert the way you are now. It's great if your organizations have a core group of folks that know what they're doing, but now we're at a point where sort of everybody needs to know what they're doing and they need to do it very quickly. And so, we've been looking at how to make Cassandra easier to use for a long time now. In fact, really, what DataStax was founded on was bringing Cassandra to the enterprise, a month or so back, we were talking to you about how we were bringing Cassandra to Kubernetes and making it, better for the cloud native world. But this is about taking it, building on top of that and taking it one step beyond that, which is how can we bring the power of Cassandra, the scale of Cassandra, the reliability of Cassandra, but remove from it the operational burden. Make it something that you can just use, you can get started with, and not just when your project gets past a certain scale, because that's been the experience for Cassandra for a long time, was that everybody knew that, when I get to the point that I've got to address, a global set of users, or I've got, data coming in from around the world, that I have no choice but to go to Cassandra. But that was always sort of a painful switchover. I had to rebuild my app, had to re-architect it for Cassandra. We said, if we can make this really easy to use from day one, then you'll never have that choice. Like, I'll start building my app on day one, and I want this app to grow up to be something that is a global application that all my customers can use. I can do that. I don't have to worry about it. And the part about making it work with GCP is because none of these technologies stand on their own. If you're an enterprise, you need a whole architecture, and you've got your workloads are your compute, they're your data. They are a whole set of systems and capabilities that link into each other, and you want to be able to go to your users and provide them with a common control plane that lets you see all of these things. And so that's why we started working with Google, with GCP, and said, hey, look, we're bringing Cassandra. That's a key technology that's been in development, proven itself over the last decade. How do we bring this in a first-class way into this GCP experience? So if somebody is going to the company that brought them containers, that brought them Kubernetes, that's building an architecture for the future, but they want to build it on the original internet database, how can we provide that in a really seamless way? And so that's why all these things come together the way they have.
So tell us a little bit about Astra. Can you tell us about its architecture? How does it build off Cassandra?
Sure. So, about a month or so back, we came and spoke to you about it. We spoke to a lot of folks about what we were doing with bringing, Cassandra to the Kubernetes world. And, part of the reason why we did that, one was the world needed that, but we also had a selfish motivation along those same lines, which is we wanted to bring Cassandra to the cloud, and we knew in order to do that, we had to bring Cassandra to Kubernetes. We as a company wanted to bring Cassandra to the cloud for a number of years now, but we knew to do it right required not just going and saying, let's put this thing up multi-tenant on a bunch of servers. We said we need a fundamental cloud native architecture for Cassandra in place in order to do that, in order to be able to bring this reliably to our users. And so the Astra release is very much built on top of that effort.
So Amar, when you're thinking about, bringing on new services and you think about all the different things you need to consider, what are some of those considerations that you've thought about with Astra and thinking through then Cassandra and how it can be really have the same scalability, have the same high availability without impacting performance? That's really what makes Cassandra what it is. So how have you managed those trade-offs? Because you can't just do everything exactly the same. Or can you?
Yes, I mean you can to some extent. So first, the Cassandra vision of being able now to have this capability spanning both on-premise but also cloud environments, with Google being the first, and I'm sure there will be others, is very key to the Google strategy itself. So Google also is a very big believer in what we call hybrid multi-cloud. And hybrid multi-cloud it's a heavy loaded term, but it really means two things. The hybrid part is about being able to very easily move workloads between on-premises or in my operated data center to a cloud environment and vice versa. Which then significantly reduces the migration effort to do something like that, which Astra definitely achieves that. So we can now take existing Cassandra applications and have them up and running in Google Cloud with the press of a couple of buttons. But then the other aspect is, can I also future-proof my strategy, that I'm not just locked into one cloud. I can branch into other clouds later on if I choose to, and it gets you that as well. So that's the benefit of what Astra is doing right now, is giving you this very flexible platform that can run anywhere and really meet you where you are. Now, Google itself, Google's strategy with Anthos, and Anthos is the distribution that includes Kubernetes and the other technologies, is exactly the same. How can we provide that same functionality of having flexible data processing systems running, whether that be on-premise, in the Google Cloud, or even in other clouds? So we really saw a very beautiful match between what we believe in and what we want to deliver to the market going forward, and what Cassandra was trying and DataStax was trying to do. I also want to highlight there is two different aspects of what people expect when they are talking about cloud. There is cloud as in the ease of use of cloud. The ease of use of cloud can still be done on-premise, right? And we have been working on that for many, many years, providing automation, self-healing systems, self-managing systems that bring in the agility and the ease of use of the cloud on-premise. But then, of course, when you move to the cloud and actually use a cloud provider, you also get this operated by them, which shifts the operations workload from you to them, and that also adds a lot of ease of use in terms of how quickly can I grow, can I operate in a new country where I don't have a physical presence very easily, etc., etc. So that's what this release really brings. It brings the best of both worlds, really.
So Tony, you've been studying databases, and and you've seen a lot of services, I'm sure, come and go. And what strikes you about Cassandra and the demand for services in the market that relate to Cassandra? And how has this adoption been relative to that? And do you have any expectations about its future in terms of now that it is available on a cloud service? And perhaps that speaks to the state of enterprises themselves and their relative level of sophistication.
There's a lot in that question. I'll start with basically just looking at the appeal of Cassandra. Basically, until now, it's been kind of a fairly exclusive club. But Cassandra is incredible in terms of the scale, in terms of the sheer performance. But getting there is required basically, maybe I won't say a PhD, but it did require basically a lot of skills, let's put it that way. So I think, for one thing, I'm a big believer in managed cloud services. I think keys of the appeal of the cloud. I mean, originally the appeal of the cloud was, well, I can just basically procure some compute capacity quick. I can just expense it, not a problem. But as we started to look at cloud native, it really changes things, because then, of course, you can then just pay for what you use. And then we take a look at the automation of cloud native that comes through. Virtualization, especially, has been essentially, I'll use the term commoditized by Kubernetes. And I say that as a compliment, it's being commoditized. That really takes it an extra leap. And my belief is that you can basically put systems in the cloud. And if you're just going on just infrastructure as a service, you're still managing it. You're just changing the economics. You're just changing to a different budgeting.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when you go to a managed service, that's really where you get the full bang for the buck of the operational simplicity and the agility that you get in the cloud. So the thing is, I think for Cassandra, it really fulfills a key part of the gap. It fulfills basically the part of the gap in terms of operations, and allows you to basically, once you can get this running, the sheer scale of Cassandra, the fact that it's masterless architecture, so it's one of the few databases out there. There are not many that are truly global. Cassandra is one of them. Is one of the first, if not the first. So I think from an operational standpoint, the cloud is really key, or I should say, a managed service in the cloud is really key. And I think that will help, dramatically widen the addressable audience that can benefit from Cassandra.
Robert, what's been your experience in running Astra? I know you have had some experience with it.
Yeah, a little bit. Look, we have to support a cast of thousands when it comes to databases at Datical. You name it, we support it. And so for us to be able to fire up a Cassandra instance and do our development work, validate that our software works against it, that was crucial. And I think what's going on right now with this, we have so many choices with databases. And it used to be that you chose the database based on who your CIO played golf with, whether that was Oracle or Microsoft or whoever, IBM. And now we're choosing databases based on what they can do for the application. We're making smarter choices. And so, it's also important that we have those databases available for developers, that they can just fire it up and mess around. They can't go to the cathedral and talk to the clerics to get access to the database. They need to be able to fire it up, break something, and then zap it, and then fire up a new one. That's the model that accelerates development. That's the model that accelerates upskilling across your team. And that's why we liked it. It certainly accelerated our development and our support for Cassandra.
Yeah,
We've gone from the
I
whole.
want to follow up and say I fully agree with that. Like, that's really happening right now. The cloud native architecture is really shifting the balance of power of who makes the decision to the developers right now. They get something up running so quick, already production, already high quality, already scalable, already secure, and the CIO and the CTO has no choice. They just have to agree and move forward.
Yeah, they should just pipe down and then take all the accolades when their developers do some great stuff. Just
Yes.
be quiet. Just make sure they're fed and taken care of, and the developers will do great things.
Yes.
By the way, I loved your metaphor with the cathedral.
Oh, yeah.
The cathedral
Yeah, a
and
little
the
Eric
bazaar.
Raymond callback,
Exactly. Oh, gosh.
Well, those country club deals. I remember back in the days when you go to these gigantic enterprise conferences, and man, there were more suits there, taking people out to steaks than you could ever count. And now it is a different time. I guess you could have considered those salespeople the holy roller, so to speak. They were throwing the dice, hoping to get that big deal, and now the clerics are being questioned to some degree, but there's still a lot of wisdom there, isn't there, in the world that is very much a world that is it has traditionally been very cloistered, and there must be some workloads that are not meant to be run in the cloud. There have to be, workloads that are best done on premise, and I think that's probably part of the philosophy that I would expect came with Anthos to some degree, Amer. And I'm curious on how then you think about Cassandra and Astra in that context, and just data in the cloud overall.
I mean, Anthos was about meeting developers where they are, but I'm a firm believer actually that almost everything can be done on the cloud, to be honest. The only restrictions they come because of politics or because of regulations, right? Like I am a very highly governed bank, and I just can't have this part of my data be in the cloud, or a health system, same thing. But even those are changing now. We're seeing those changing. I think the only thing that be left where it has to run on-premise or has to run very close to where you have another workload is where low latency comes into play. When you have very low latency, like if you're doing real-time trading with a stock exchange, you need to be right there beside the stock exchange. Or if you're doing some decision in the end stores and you need to have it done with very, very low latency, then you need to have some compute capability there. But other than that, I think almost everything can be done in the cloud. That's my personal opinion.
Tony, do you agree? Or would the people you talk to agree who are running their enterprise infrastructure and thinking about all that data?
Well, put it this way. I do not think that even though, as Amr said, that from a technical standpoint, given enough security, there's no reason why, outside of, basically workloads that need to run in proximity to something like a financial, like a capital. There's no reason why any application could not run in the cloud. So I'll agree with that. But the thing is, there are lots of institutional barriers, whether it be internal corporate policies, whether it be external regulatory mandates, whether it also be data sovereignty laws. The fact is that even the biggest cloud out there, which has the widest geographic distribution, is only in like 55 or 60 countries. Last I counted, I think there were 200 countries in the world. So there are going to be scenarios where data is going to stay on premises. And the thing is, that's why I believe that hybrid cloud has just become so important. And it's also why it's no coincidence that every major cloud and even incumbent IT platform provider in the last 18 months has come up with hybrid cloud platforms. I just completed some research on this and comparing some of the major platforms out there. And what's fascinating about this is that as an industry, we've not yet really settled on a definition of what is hybrid cloud. Comparing these are like apples and oranges. But I think that, on one hand, you could say there's a certain degree of confusion on that. But on the other hand, it means that there's a lot of choice. And as Amr says, it's meeting developers where they want to be and how they want to deal with the cloud. Do you want, let's say, an appliance? Fine, there are appliances out there. Do you just want software that works on any commodity hardware? There's that out there. Do you want to work totally disconnected, or do you want to run tethered? There are both. So the fact is that what I see is that 100% of workloads are never going to move to the cloud. A lot will, but the fact is, what the real drive, the real trigger here is that enterprises want the operational simplicity and agility of the cloud control plane wherever they are.
Yes.
Yeah, the cloud experience is what everybody wants for new stuff. They want to be able to modernize their existing systems to that. The reason why hybrid, hybrid is the end state that for most organizations is what they need. The reason why it's been so painful to get there is that a lot of vendors went and said, well, we'll just make it possible to drop things into a VM and you'll magically go to cloud. And that was never a good solution. And and so now you've got you use the term there, control planes, that is super important. Like, we're moving into this era of the cloud control plane, the hybrid cloud control plane, and it's why, for example, Kubernetes is kind of the normalizing force across these is super important, because people are going to go and look at do the systems that I deploy, can they run on top of Kubernetes? Do the control planes integrate? There'll be a whole set of tooling that's emerging. In many ways, Anthos is as much and is more so, in fact, a tooling, a control plane, a mechanism for enterprises to think about their workloads as it is, a specific Kubernetes distribution. In fact, I would say it's the value and the innovation there has been, how to drive the industry in terms of control planes, and so that's the part that for me, made hybrid possible. There have been vendors for years now going and saying, oh, we've now got our stuff in a VM, hence we're hybrid. But I like the cloud native term a little bit better because it describes how it was architected.
Yes, it's a lot more than
one of the questions.
It's about the connectivity between them, the security, the networking, the load balancing. There is just so many things that people take for granted. Yeah.
And we're coming, I think, towards the end of our discussion here, and I wanted to just touch on Cassandra and the cloud experience. And, Amr, you mentioned the cloud experience, and this is really an open-ended question for you and everyone else. I'm really interested in this, in what you mean by the cloud experience and how the cloud experience has changed, because as you well know, and you all know here, the cloud experience has never been so easy to actually understand for a lot of people. And Cassandra was never really meant to be used by, in its earliest days by a developer, right? Just kind of like who's, building, whatever app it is. Even if they're building infrastructure software, it was still very specialized. So I'm curious, what is the jump in the cloud experience now? What do you point to? And when you think about that in terms of data in particular?
Yeah, so there will be a demo recorded, and you guys can watch later about how to launch the Cassandra service on top of Google Cloud with the console. But to give you a story, like an example, in the legacy way of doing things, I would have to go and talk to my IT department to procure the servers, to procure the network equipment, and then to set them up. So that can alone take a few months. And then after that, have to go and talk again with the operating system people, make sure they have the right operating system installed, which again can take a long time. And then I have to do the installation of all of the different daemons and services on the servers. By the time I get a Cassandra cluster up and running, we're talking about months, if not years, right? In this new world, with the Google Cloud Console integration, you literally just do a couple of clicks. And within seconds, you have a Cassandra service up and running for you. So that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Robert, just a couple clicks, right? How many clicks did it take a year ago? How many clicks 2 years ago, 5 years ago?
Oh, we didn't even look at it. Like you were talking about setting up Cassandra, taking a month. Yeah, that's like building a nuclear reactor. We ain't got no time for that. We just kept kicking that can down the road. We'll get to it. And then, I go to last year's Accelerate. There's a boot camp. And I'm like, oh, because look, I don't get to geek around with stuff unless I'm at a conference. And so I always sign up for a boot camp. That's super easy, man. And that's what it needs to be. If you want experimentation, if you want to be able to see if that data platform can do what it's advertising, you need to be able to set it up and let your developers check it out. That's what you need. Now, maybe it's not the right platform. Choose another one, but at least you checked it out. But make no mistake, your developers want to try things. They also want to go to the cloud. So it's not so much about deciding if this app can go. It's deciding if you want to keep those developers around, because they're going to deploy apps to the cloud, whether it's at your company or somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to use, Tony, do they want to use Cassandra?
Well, put it this way. As I said, until now, Cassandra's been a pretty exclusive club. So there have been other NoSQL databases that have probably been more popular destinations. But my sense is that when they can see the ease by which they can mount a Cassandra cluster in the cloud, or maybe cluster is probably not the right terminology, and the power they can get for basically mounting a truly global application, power can be addictive. So I think that I think there are probably a lot of developers that would love to be able to say, hey, I just deployed an application that is live in 3 regions across the globe, mm-hmm. and the performance just kicks butt. So the thing is that I think that as we lower the entry barriers to entry to Cassandra, it will become a much more active, much more attractive, developer target.
Yeah,
one of the last questions I love.
Sorry, I was going to say history proves that there has been many other database services, without mentioning their names, that made the move to the cloud, and with that ease of use and ease of launching, and that's exactly what happened to them. As they moved, their growth just became explosive, because it became much more easier for developers to just get them up and running.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Cassandra, there was a much higher bar in terms of both the operational promise, the scalability, the complexity of it. That we wanted, when we looked at bringing Cassandra to the cloud, we said, look, it's not just about going and putting this thing in a VM. This needs to be able to carry all the essential attributes that made Cassandra really attractive in the early days of the cloud to begin with. I mean, one of the things I like to point out is, I've been using Cassandra for 11, 12 years now. Cassandra got really popular in the early days of the cloud when it was about the reliability and the elasticity of it. And everybody remembers, when AWS had that big outage and everybody went down except for Netflix. And Netflix, it was a defining moment. Like when everybody was like, well, why was Netflix still up? And Netflix wrote this wonderful blog post that described, like, okay, here's how you do your architecture in multiple regions and availability zones. Here's how you design. Here's how you build an architecture for internet scale reliability on top of the cloud. And that was the pattern that people who then went and said, okay, what database is designed for that? And the answer back then was Cassandra, and it has still been to this day, from an open source standpoint, is the best answer for being able to run a reliable database at global scale. And so that's the part that bringing that experience to what a developer looks for, because remember, the developer just wants to build his or her app. They as much as we can all geek out about what's in the database, they just want to be able to issue queries and store data and want it to magically work. They also, of course, don't want to get paged at 2 a.m. when the thing blows up.
But Ed, and anyone else, for you in particular, Ed, what did you remember about learning Cassandra? What made it that jump? I mean, and there's corollaries today, do we see, with other technologies that people are struggling with now. I think Kubernetes for the first time is actually becoming more accessible, and a lot of that might be, due in part to, just the evolution of the, of their architecture. But what was it about then? Did you just have to set things up yourself and know how to set everything up? What was it that really made it something to learn?
Well, so clustered distributed systems are always a very steep step function in terms of learnability. Like if you think about, let's imagine you're a web developer, LAMP stack, circa 2008, 2007, and you're like, okay, like I'm just going to go to GoDaddy and get my instance, and I'm going to go and run my SQL, and I've got PHP, and it's all there in the box, and I can SSH into it, and that was like the state of the cloud, right? And then you're looking at, and then you're reading, for example, that Netflix blog post, and you're aspirational. You're saying, hey, I want that to be me. And then you're going and you're looking, Cassandra, you're like, wait a minute, now I have to run like 3 servers, and you're telling me that's actually a pretty small deployment. Like, like the people who are really doing this are running, hundreds, in some cases, thousands of servers. Kubernetes went through the same thing as well. Like a lot of people, when they first looked at it, they were like, well, wait a minute, like what's this idea of clusters, multiple nodes? Like I just, and things like Heroku were hiding that all for you. And so part of what's happened with Kubernetes and with things like GKE and Anthos was they were giving you this architectural approach, but they were making it like now it's just behind the scenes. Like I don't have to worry about that. So it's great that you've got it. It's great to know that it's there under the hood, but it's like driving a car these days. For those of us who haven't gone to electric, like I don't have to go and know like speed shifting to get the most out of my car. Something else is doing it behind the scenes for me.
Well, just in conclusion, I would love just to hear from Robert, Amer, and Tony just about your thoughts about today and and Cassandra as as really one of those original cloud databases, and where do you see things going from here? What is it for you that you're excited about? And in terms of the experience that can be provided to developers out there and what they're capable of doing with it.
Yeah, what excites me the most is we are finally trying to get to a stage where we are not reinventing the wheel every time we build a new application. That's really the goal of all of this stuff. All that we are doing, all of us together collectively, is about that. Let's look at the things that there's no argument about: how we do load balancing, how we do security, how we do the firewalling. Like we keep re-examining them and redo them and them and re-architect them every single time. And it's now finally a point where we say, no, the developers should just focus on the code, the logic, the new stuff that we need to do for that app, and then everything around that just gets automated. And that's what excites me the most.
Robert?
Well, I mean, look, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're writing a single line of code that does not impact your customer's life and only makes your life easier, you're doing the wrong stuff. And yeah, it was real hard to set up Cassandra back in the day. It's gotten easier, but you know what? It was real hard getting Linux back in the day too, and that got easier too. Except we didn't have the cloud. You had to go to a bookstore and get a CD in the back of the book. It's just continuing. We're continuing to see that open source is winning. That it proves out a value prop, that it is going to solve a very specific problem. And the people that feel that pain the most are the ones that are going to gravitate to that. Then it starts to develop, and then it starts to get more mature, and then it starts getting easier and easier to use. And then mere mortals can start taking advantage of that. And that's just the life cycle with all technology. I mean, it used to be real hard to compile a Linux kernel. Now I just get an Android phone, we're done. So I think this is just a continuation of that ease of use and making it easier for developers to get the job done.
Get it done, Tony.
Yeah, well, I think the one major piece that I would like to see fall into place with Cassandra right now, I think with the managed cloud, we're getting the operational stuff and we're getting it nice under the hood in the black box. So you don't have to worry about it. As Amr said, with basically with Kubernetes, we now have not only the formal but de facto standards that we don't have to reinvent how we actually operate the cloud. So I think the final step that I would really like to see in Cassandra world is basically some more, some tools that basically simplify basically the modeling, basically, the design part. I think that's still a gap, but I think it's certainly very achievable. And now that basically that we can get the operational stuff taken care of, which going to manage cloud on Kubernetes, will do. We can, you can finally get to that, go the last mile, and that to me would be really exciting to make basically Cassandra as easy to design as some other databases that will not be named.
Right. I totally agree with you on that. I think that the exciting thing about Cassandra has been that it's tackled a lot of the hard problems, and coming in, bringing the database into the cloud native age has been one of those. But yeah, there's a lot that can be done to make it easier for the developer, remove the impedance mismatch around how they think about what they're building, and some of the data model challenges that some of which are NoSQL, but some of which are specific to Cassandra.
Thank you all for joining us for this discussion at the DataStax Accelerate Conference. I want to thank in particular the people who joined us today for this conversation, this expert group. I really enjoyed the discussion. I'm here with Ed Enough, Chief Product Officer at DataStax. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Alex.
Amr Ahmadallah with Google Cloud Platform.
Thank you.
Tony Baer of DB Insights.
Hey, thanks, Alex.
And Robert Reeves of Datical. Thank you all for joining us. We look forward to following up on these conversations on data in the cloud, and looking forward to seeing what becomes of Astra and how we move to the cloud with data services. Thank you very much all for joining us.